What if your DAO didn't just give you a voice, but actually made you a ruler of the protocol? And what if you could stack multiple layers of yield without ever having to lock up your assets? Well, that's the whole promise of liquid restaking. And today, we're going to break down a project built entirely around that idea, Bedrock DAO. This question right here gets to the heart of a huge dilemma in DeFi. For years, getting the best yield meant locking your assets away, making them pretty much useless for anything else. Bedrock DAO is built on the idea that you don't have to make that sacrifice anymore.
So before we jump into the solution, we really have to understand the core problem it's trying to solve. And in DeFi, we call this the staking dilemma.
It's a classic trade-off, right? You want to earn rewards with your crypto, so you stake it. But the second you do that, it's locked. It's illiquid. You can't use it, you can't sell it, you can't react to the market. You're getting yield, but you're sacrificing flexibility. And that's a choice nobody really wants to have to make. And this, of course, brings us to the proposed solution. Enter Bedrock DAO, a project designed specifically to get rid of that dilemma for good. At its core, Bedrock is the DAO that governs a multi-asset liquid restaking protocol. Now, that sounds complicated, but the idea is actually simple. You stake your assets to earn yield, and in return, you get a liquid token that you can use elsewhere in DeFi to earn even more yield, all without your original capital ever being locked down. Their key goals are pretty ambitious. They're not just aiming for Ethereum, they're bringing assets like Bitcoin into the restaking ecosystem too. The entire model is really designed around three pillars: maximizing your yield, maintaining your liquidity, and handing control over to the community. So how does the community actually get control? Well, it all comes down to a clever two-token system, the BR token and something called veBR. The process to gain influence is really straightforward. It follows this four-step path. It starts with the native token, BR. Then you lock it up to receive veBR, which represents your voting power. With that power, you can directly influence crucial decisions, like which liquidity pools get the most rewards. This comparison lays out the difference perfectly. Think of BR as your ticket to get into the amusement park. It's liquid, you can buy it, you can sell it. But veBR, that's your pass to actually operate the rides. It's non-transferable, and it represents your long-term commitment and your voice in how the park is run. The longer you lock your BR, the more veBR and therefore more voting power you get. Okay, so the mechanics are interesting, but where does Bedrock DAO actually sit in the crypto market today? The tokenomics paint a picture of a project that's just getting started. A huge 77% of the total supply is either locked or not yet released, with only about 23% in circulation. Now, this is pretty typical for a young project with long-term plans, but it also means we can expect significant token emissions over time to fund growth and incentives. And that early-stage status is reflected in its market cap, which is hovering around $12 to $15 million. This puts it firmly in the small to mid-cap category, which points to a project with some serious room to grow, but also, the volatility that comes with it. A huge part of Bedrock's strategy is tapping into crypto's biggest asset, Bitcoin. Through their liquid restaking token, BTC, they're unlocking Bitcoin for complex yield strategies. A lot of people are calling this BTCFi 2.0, moving beyond just wrapping Bitcoin to truly integrating it into the fabric of DeFi yield generation. So how does it stack up against the giants? Unlike Lido, which is mostly just for ETH, Bedrock is multi-asset. And while EigenLayer uses restaking for security, Bedrock is purely focused on maximizing user yield. Its biggest differentiator is the governance model. The liquidity gauges let veBR holders vote directly on which pools get token rewards, giving them fine-grained control over the protocol's incentives. Of course, no project is without its challenges and potential pitfalls. So, let's get a balanced view by looking at both the risks and the potential upside. Every protocol faces threats. For Bedrock, the first is just crossing the adoption chasm. It needs users to thrive. Then there's the risk of centralization. A few large whales could potentially dominate governance. As a smaller project, it has to weather the storms of market volatility. And finally, it's just got to execute on its ambitious roadmap without hitting any major roadblocks along the way. This really lays out the two paths forward. The bullish case sees liquid restaking taking off, with Bedrock expanding to more assets and an active community optimizing the protocol for success. The bearish scenario involves low participation, getting outmaneuvered by bigger competitors, or facing regulatory headwinds that hinder its core functions. And that brings us to our final big question. Are we seeing a new model for DAOs emerge here?
one that's less of a social club and more of a powerful economic engine, directly controlled by its users. Could this be the template for the future of decentralized finance? Only time will tell.